Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the NerdCast. Hope you've all been well. Today's topic is video games and board games. I am obsessed with video games, so I have a lot to say. But Angelina, who is not really as much into video games, I have some interesting questions for her. I want to hear her point of view on this. So, starting with, I guess, a basic one. Favorite video games, favorite video game style, and why. And that's in, racing, fighting, first person, third person, puzzle games, RPGs, all that stuff.
I guess I would say role-playing games, just based on the games that I enjoyed when I was a kid, because that's when I played the most video games. Now I really only play video games with you. I don't really play a whole lot by myself.
True.
But, all of the games that I played as a kid, they were very simple. I was just acting as the character and doing different actions. Like, for instance, I had my Game Boy game, and, some of them had different elements of things. Like, they were adventures, some of them had puzzles, some of them had fighting in it. I remember, my Game Boy was what I played with more than anything else. And I think the first game I ever got was Mary-Kate and Ashley's Crush Course.
Yeah.
And it was, going through, them all and solving different missions to figure out, who had a crush on them. But you were them. And it was very simple graphics. You couldn't tell who anyone was. They were just characters, like Mario and Luigi. You really couldn't tell that they were specific people.
Rough character models.
Yeah. But I remember really enjoying that. And then I had a game that was very similar from Diva Stars, kind of the same thing, going around the mall trying to, you don't know what Diva Stars are probably.
I don't know what that is, no.
They were a toy that came out late 90s, early 2000s. And they had giant heads and tiny plastic bodies, and they weren't really, they were sort of like dolls, but they were all plastic, hard plastic, not like a Barbie where it's bendable, or Bratz doll where it's bendable. It wasn't like that. And I know that McDonald's or Burger King or something gave them out when they first came out as a toy. You probably saw them before.
Maybe I've seen a commercial. Was it the spelling? Was it a capital D dash VA? I'm trying to be clever like that.
I don't think so, but Stars might have had a Z at the end. You might recognize them if you saw them. I'm not sure, but you could take their feet off and change their shoes out. I remember that. It was kind of like a Mr. Potato Head thing where you snapped on all the clothes.
Yeah, that sounds really familiar.
Okay, well then you know what I'm talking about. But at the time,
I feel like that's still around. It's just with a different name now. Because I know Lena has a toy that's exactly like that, with a giant head where you can take their feet off and change their shoes.
Well, I think the LOL dolls are similar in terms of the way that they're built, but here, I can show you a picture. These are the Diva Stars.
Oh my god. Okay, no. I've never seen them before, but that does sound familiar.
They had real hair, but the rest of them was hard plastic. And I remember I was just obsessed with them, but everyone was. And there were these games that you could play online too. I think they were made by Mattel.
Okay.
So Mattel always had the best computer games for all of their toys. No lie. They had the My Scene dolls, Diva Stars, Barbie, Polly Pocket, and they all had incredible computer games. And I would be on there for hours playing those. And some of those were kind of the Disney games, Stitch's Sandwich Maker, where you would do it was kind of that,
those.
a little I don't know what that type of game is called, but they were little mini missions that you would do, and they're short, kind of easy games, but they were so much fun. So I always enjoyed that. But I had that for Game Boy. I had all the ones from the Disney Channel shows. I That's So Raven, Lizzie McGuire,
oh my gosh.
And then for the Wii, the games that I played, the GameCube I played, I guess that was first, and I enjoyed racing games on there. I remember I told you that, and Super Smash, Luigi's Mansion.
Classic.
Yeah, but really it was my Game Boy, and I would go over to Blockbuster sometimes and I would pick up little games, but they were always the same and I don't know what type of game you call this, but I was like, they were like a bird's eye view type of game. I remember like Hamtaro was one too, where you would solve the different missions and like go around the town as Hamtaro. I enjoyed that too. But like, I feel like they're all the games that I really enjoyed are kind of that style, or they were like makeover games, you know, where you would like design something or build something. And that was the other thing that I liked. I liked being creative with it, or I liked being able to explore like a world and do missions.
Okay.
I really had like two categories that were my favorite.
That style of game is very popular. I mean, even the early Legends of Zelda games were like that. It's a top-down view of Link, and you just kind of go throughout Hyrule and complete missions.
And you have no idea like who the characters are, but you just have to figure out by the colors.
Yeah, they have like one distinctive feature, you know, and that's it. But did you miss the point of like where like we had a whole line of games that I guess were made by like off-brand companies or like Hasbro or something like that, where you were just like, you were a chef or you were doing like makeovers or hair, and every mission was like, you know, you have customers come in and you have to wash out her hair and apply the shampoo and do all this stuff, and if you do it wrong or it's too fast or too short, you get points off, and you have to earn money to buy better tools and materials and stuff like that. Like,
I had those for the PC because those weren't really available on the GameCube, so I would play those games with like, you know, like the CD-ROMs. I had a lot of those, especially like the Barbie ones. I remember I had like a Barbie makeover and like Princess Bride Barbie or something, where you were like her or like trying to get her ready for her wedding, and you would like do all these things like bake the cake, and you would go out and find all the horses and design the whole venue and all of that. And I always thought that was fun, not because it was Barbie, but just because you got to like be creative and figure out things on your own and be artistic.
Yeah,
I definitely had those, but you didn't have to pay for those all of the time. You could find all of those online for free for the most part.
True.
If you knew where to look. Like all of the characters and shows that I enjoyed when I was a kid, all of the games that were made for them on the computer for free were like that. They were like, you could be this character and you could go on these missions as them, like, you know, or you could give makeovers to, you know, be Barbie's hairstylist and come up with her new style, you know. So I definitely didn't miss those. I just never went to the store and bought them because they weren't available for the systems that I was playing when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I think they probably were for the Wii at some point too. But at that point I was like, well, why would I pay for it when I can just get it for free?
PBS had something like that. I remember where like there was a hub, main hub site, and then they had all different characters' faces in like little squares, in like the top of the main menu that you would click on, and it would bring you to that page. So I would click on like Arthur, and there would be a shoot ton of Arthur games that you could play. And then there would be like Sesame Street, Zaboomafoo, and stuff like that. And you could play all the games based off the characters in their shows. And I think Nickelodeon did that too. I think actually they all did. I think Nick did that. I think Cartoon Network did that at one point.
They all did.
I remember playing a Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends game. But those were all games that, like, they didn't come out for a system. It was always just on the computer on a website that you would have to search for.
Yeah.
You know, those characters never got their own games. I guess Barbie and I guess Lizzie McGuire. And I didn't even know that they made a That's So Raven game for the Wii. I had no idea.
Well, not for the Wii, for the Game Boy. They had one. They might have had one for the Wii, too. I don't know. But I remember getting it for my Game Boy Advance. I loved that game, too. It was really hard. It was really hard. I remember the games that I had for the Game Boy as a kid that were supposed to be like for kids were always like super tough. Like I never made it past like level 3 for Barbie's Secret Agent because there were so many like combined controls that you had to do at the same time. You know, you had to like hit different combos in order to get her to like kill the bad guys or like jump over something. And she was running through all of these different stages, like through like Paris and through Tokyo, and you had to like get her to like hop on top of the pagoda. I can't do it. I was like a kid, you know, and I was like still figuring out my motor skills. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. So I remember I failed in Paris pretty much every single time. I remember I got through the first level and then I was like on like the little street tops where they had all the flowers, like hopping from building to building, and I kept getting caught. So I don't know. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I just wasn't very good at it. But I remember it being really tough. And then the That's So Raven game, yeah, I made a little further with that one, but I just kept dying there too. So.
Did you say dying?
Well, I guess they don't die, but you know how they like disappear and then you come back.
What happened? What was that game like? How did you have a That's the Raven game?
I'm trying to think now. I know that you were interacting with the different characters and that there were problems. Like you had to like stop something from happening so that her vision didn't come true, because it was like she had a vision that something bad was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so she would be like panicking to try to figure out how to fix it. And you would go around and like try to uncover all of the clues to like get her to figure out what was wrong. And you'd have to like interact with all the people in there, and it kind of was more like a puzzle game, I guess, because you had to figure out what was wrong. And if you eventually did, then you got the round and you were able to progress. But I remember one of them being, do you remember the episode when she was in the like rip-off Chuck E. Cheese's with that little kid who was really bratty?
No.
And her crush? No? Okay. Well, that was one of the levels.
So were the levels based off of different episodes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
That's
it
cool.
was cute. And I feel like for the time, the graphics were pretty good on that one, too.
Did it start off with her theme song, or like was there music involved in the game that was from the show?
Yeah. It was all based around the show. I think Disney did a really good job with that one. I enjoyed that a lot. I played that game a lot. The one that I think I played the most that got wore out was like Britney's Dance Beat. I was just obsessed with that one. My parents eventually got sick of the music too. They were like, "Can you just turn the volume off and do it without it?"
Was that also for the DS? Or was that for the Wii?
It was for Game Boy Advance.
Oh, the Game Boy Advance.
But it was like Guitar Hero. It was kind of like a combination of like Guitar Hero and like Just Dance, I guess. Because obviously you couldn't like, there was no like Dance Dance Revolution pad where you could like step on things.
Yeah.
But you had to hit the combos at the right time. So it would
you're
be
using
like
the D-pad for that, like the directional.
Yeah, and then
buttons?
like A and B, and then the triggers,
Okay.
and it would get harder each time. And I did beat the game, so I just have to brag about that. I did eventually beat the game, thank you, because I played it literally every single day for hours on end. I just could not break myself away from it because I was obsessed with Britney. I loved her music and everything. I would sing it, but I just really enjoyed like the rush of trying to like hit the buttons at the right time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like as soon as you get like you hit the combo, it just like feels right. You're like, yes, I did it. And then you clear the song and everything. I always felt bad if I didn't though, because she like stumbles and it looks like she's hurting herself, which I felt was like a little too realistic.
You don't want her to embarrass herself on stage. Yeah.
Well, you had to get through the practice rounds first. If you passed the practice rounds, then you could move on to the concert rounds, which were a lot tougher.
Gotcha.
And then you had to, you moved up from the different stages. She went from like a local concert to like a world tour.
So she, of course, did all her own original music. Did they ever do any, like, were any of the levels ever based off of, like, her real life performances? Like, did you have to do a level with a snake or something like that?
No, I'm trying to remember what year this was. So obviously this was pre-conservatorship Britney, because she was not doing any of this at that point. They didn't have any video games for her after that. This was pretty early in her career. But I remember I'm a Slave for You was one of the songs, and that, what was that, 2003, 2004 when that came out? So maybe it was around then that I was playing it.
Okay.
So I don't know if I don't remember the snake being in there, but I remember the Oops, I Did It Again outfit was in it, and you were like in the music video for part of it.
Oh, that's
cool. And I remember doing that. But yeah, and parts of the I'm a Slave for You video were in there, like in her dance and her outfit. But yeah, I was kind of surprised my parents let me play that. But that was one of my favorites too. That's a whole different category of game though, I guess. But I did enjoy that, and Guitar Hero too, so maybe that was part of it, that I enjoyed like the combos with the music, that type of game.
Yeah, I guess Guitar Hero and like Dance Dance and Just Dance are all, I wouldn't say newer, but that's like a whole different category of gaming. Is all like active and music
Dance Revolution
related.
has been in arcades for a long time, but having that at home isn't something new.
That's what I mean. Yeah, at home. No, I know obviously in the arcades that's been there for years. But yeah, having that at home, being able to hook that pad up to your PlayStation or Wii, you know.
I feel like Britney's Dance Beat really carved the way for Guitar Hero and Dance Dance Revolution at home.
Do you think after her conservatorship they'll do like a Britney's Just Dance like the way they did for Michael Jackson? Like when she's able to license her own stuff and do whatever she wants?
I don't think she wants to do anything like that at all. She wants to retire.
Oh. Well, no. I mean, all they have to do is just have her music in the game.
I guess if that's
it'd be just like a whole game
based
off of
cool.
Her music. I don't know, because I don't think any of her songs have ever been in any of those games, like even from the first Just Dance.
I honestly don't know.
I don't know either. My favorite one's the Michael Jackson one, and then I don't even know. There's like so many other Just Dance games now that I've lost track of what number they're on. But okay, so it's either RPG, something like that, or it's like a puzzle solving game. Okay.
Or it's like some sort of creative venture too.
Okay.
I enjoy those, but it's kind of hard to like pick. Cause I like building roller coasters for like Roller Coaster Tycoon, and like Sims too. I liked that. But
Disney needs to get on that.
Yes,
they need
agreed.
A Disney World Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
So awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, I really enjoyed a lot of different types of games when I was a kid.
Well, I guess that's really a hard question to ask because
I played a lot.
Yeah, you play a lot and you like different things about each game style, each genre of gaming, so you can't really choose one.
Did you ever have games that like connected to your TV? Like not in a game system, but the kind that you would just plug into like the AV signal and play?
I don't know if you remember, but before we moved out, I brought it to your house. And it was a Pixar one that came with 3 games. And it's just a joystick and like 4 buttons, and it plugs right into the TV. There was Bugs Life, Monsters Inc., and Toy Story. And each character or each movie had like 3 games that you could play that was attached to it. But I had the Pixar one. I remember Josh had a Spider-Man one. I love those. There was a Pac-Man one that just came preloaded with a bunch of levels. We had a bunch of those growing up. And I don't know, something about going back and playing the Pixar one now is very nostalgic. I do love it, and the outdated graphics and stuff like that, because it reminds me of the Sega game for Toy Story. And Tom Hanks is like super glitchy, pixelated Woody voice. Why did you also have?
I only had one. I picked it up at Toys R Us one year.
Yeah.
And it was like you didn't have a joystick or anything. Just had like a remote where you could like pick choices from it.
Oh.
And it was kind of a role playing game, but you could like it was like kind of like build your own like life in high school, and you had to like make friends and get a date for homecoming, and you could like design your own like outfits and stuff, and it was very simple. It was kind of like it was kind of like point and click, but it was on the TV.
Okay.
But I remember being entertained by that for hours and like just like, looking through it. I can't remember what it's called now. It wasn't licensed with anyone. It was just kind of its own thing. But I always thought that was fun too. But that was the only thing like that I had. I didn't know until I met you. I didn't know that there were more that were like that. I just thought that was like kind of its standalone thing, and everything else came with the system.
Yeah. I had Aunt Sarah found a Harry Potter TV game that was just like a disc that you put into your DVD player, and you just play it with your TV remote. And it was just kind of diagonal or directional button gaming, and that's it.
Yeah.
There was a level where you had to like navigate your way through the Marauders map without getting detected by the teachers and stuff like that, but every level was so simple because it's just like find your way through the maze and stuff like that. But I don't know. I guess I consider that gaming because you are playing a game, like video gaming.
It is a game.
But
even if it doesn't have a system attached, it's still a video game.
It doesn't always have to have a system attached.
I mean, computer games are still kind of like video games too.
Well, PC video gaming culture is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the numbers, but there are a lot of people that prefer to play like system-based games
Henry
on the
Cavill.
PC. Who?
Henry Cavill.
Yeah, who built his own gaming computer?
He's incredible.
Yeah, super nerd. But I would definitely consider computer games video games.
Well, if you consider those video games, why would you not consider the things that plug in your TV video games?
I mean, no, that's why I didn't really commit to that. It's just, I don't know, something about it is so, like, it's like the type of thing that you could find on a bonus disc with a movie, you know? It's like the type of game that just comes loaded. Here's a little fun activity that you can do
Still
that comes loaded with the, with the movie. But, no, yeah. Still a game. Still a video game. Okay. Well, let's move on to some harder questions then. Yeah. Well, I don't know how hard this is, but as video games and technology advance, we're getting more realistic games and more immersive games. The character models look like real people, very short of the uncanny valley in some cases. And you're getting video games with like the VR headset that make you feel like you're actually in the world. You're doing this thing. PlayStation is doing that really well. How do you think it's affecting video games and video game culture to like people are getting so immersed, and it's like you have the handheld remotes, you have the headset, you're disconnected from the TV, and you're in your living room just kind of running around doing everything that you would be doing in the game. You don't need the controller anymore. You don't need to be sitting down looking at the TV, although what you're doing is being projected on the TV screen for anybody that you're watching or that's watching you. You're seeing everything through your headset. So that style of gaming, do you think that will grow and take over video game culture as a whole, or will it continue to stay in its own pocket and evolve on its own and have the system-based games where you sit with a controller and look at a TV screen? Do you think that'll continue to be, as popular, or do you think that's going to get pushed to the side and have people be like, well, I'd rather feel like I'm in a Harry Potter game or in a Battlefront game or playing Fortnite?
I don't think VR is the future of it, honestly.
No.
I don't. I could be wrong. That statement could not age well, I'm not sure. But they've had VR for years, and it's the technology's good. There's not like there's anything wrong with it, but it's just not for everyone. Like, I wouldn't want to VR because
motion sickness and
migraines.
Stuff.
That would just make me completely sick. So, and there's a lot of people who feel that way, and anybody who has epilepsy probably couldn't do that. If you have motion sickness, you're definitely not going to want to do that. And furthermore, I think playing those types of games, if it's like a particularly violent video game that you're playing,
or a horror game,
I feel like that kind of messes with your head a little bit, because I mean, with them getting more realistic anyway, it kind of does, I think, too, because it's exposing you to violence and encouraging you to participate in it in a way that feels real. But I think once you put the VR headset on, that's like a whole nother level. And then I think that's even more dangerous. So I'm definitely hoping that it doesn't move in that direction, at least for that type of game. But I think that's kind of part of the fun, is that that it's not really happening. Like you're in your own world for that minute, but that it's not really happening to you, so you still have that kind of feeling of safety almost. And I think that having the VR headset on there, it kind of removes a little bit of that feeling of safety. So I don't know. Personally, I don't think that that's going to completely replace regular gaming. I still think that hooking it up to the TV and watching it on the TV is going to be more the future. And whether, TVs eventually become more like 3D technology where it kind of stands up from the surface anyway, that might be like a different question. Like, I feel like that technology is going to evolve at the same time that video games do, and they're going to become more sophisticated, but I just don't see it moving toward VR completely. The technology that I'm seeing evolve now is interesting, and the Switch is cool, and how it incorporates all of those different elements of different systems before it. But personally, no, I don't think that that's the future of gaming. I think that they're going to evolve concurrently, the video game systems and the TV and all that, and I think that it's going to become its own thing. I just don't think that VR is that thing.
Okay, so then that kind of answers my next question. Like, so you believe that the systems like Nintendo and PlayStation, Xbox will continue to produce games where you can just sit down in a relaxed state and play and watch it on the TV, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's what people enjoy.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't ever think that there will be a chance that in the far future we will be like outpaced by video games? Like, if you're older and you can't really keep up and you can't really move the same way you used to when you were younger, games like that will... Do you think that we will still be able to enjoy video games the same way as we're older and we have all these problems with eyesight and being able to move around and be as active? Like, you don't think it's going to be a problem if it gets to that point? I'm not really sure what you're asking. So, the VR and all that stuff, you just answered my question basically, but I was going to ask you anyway. If it does not take over video gaming and become the be-all, end-all, there's still going to be a chance for us when we're older to be able to sit down and relax and play video games. But if that was the case, and VR did take over, and it did kind of force you to get up and move around and be a little bit more active, when we all get older, this generation, and are, achy and tired and joints hurt, you can't really move around, you're not as active, do you think it's going to be like, oh, well, I might as well just stop playing these games because I can't keep up and it's not meant for me anymore?
I mean, who knows? I feel like you could kind of ask that about anything. Like, will you still feel like cooking or baking? Will you still feel like going for runs?
Sure,
I
but
feel like you could ask that about anything. I feel like
cooking or baking.
But it's not about us. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're just such an inconsequential part of the future, and that we exist, and that we're going to continue our own future, and to ourselves and to each other we're important, but to the grand scheme of things, we're tiny ant in a big hill. So, they're not, I don't think video game makers are going to be concerned about our specific generation in the future and like what we can do, what we can't do. And I think that it's going to evolve the way that it makes sense and the way that consumers are interested in it. And if we do happen to still be an important part of the market, then, maybe we'll see different changes being made. But I think in general, it's usually younger people who are most involved in playing video games for whatever reason. Maybe you have more time, maybe it's just more exciting, I don't know. But, I just don't really see that as being a concern in the future, I guess. Guys, that's just kind of how things go.
Well, sure. Well, I guess that
we would
be
kind of irrelevant at that point, I guess, in terms of the video game world, if it gets to the point where they're making games that are only specifically for a specific group of people. If you're not in that specific group of people, then you're no longer part of the equation.
Well, yes, it's kind of obvious.
You can still enjoy what you have, if you still have, your Sega Genesis or your GameCube or your Nintendo Switch or, whatever you have. You can still enjoy those things, but, whether the future of gaming is for us is to be determined, I suppose. It's a very difficult thing to answer in terms of that, I suppose. It's tough for me to think in the future of that because of how rapidly technology evolves, that, like, things that we have now, I didn't really imagine that we would have, and things that I thought that we would have by now, some things we don't have.
Well, that's why I feel like it might be easier to answer the question, because you can kind of see how things evolved and how quickly it did so, and you can kind of look at what we have now and see the possibility of what it could be in the future and where it could go in the future.
I mean, if you told me 15 years ago that I could have a phone in my hand that would allow me to watch entire movies on it, you would blow my freaking mind.
15 years ago?
15 years. What? How many years ago? What year was that? We're in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So like 2006, right? Yeah, you would have blown my mind. You would have blown my mind. Because in 2006, I had like an LG chocolate, like the kind with a screen that was like the size of half of my thumb, right?
Yeah.
And I could like text, but if I hit the internet button, then my parents would be charged like $100. So I couldn't do that. And I remember even when I was, when I was in high school and I had a BlackBerry, my older years in high school, I didn't have that starting out, but I could access like a website, but it wasn't optimized for web, and so you really couldn't see any pictures or anything. It was just text. So yeah, I mean, if you had told me when I was in high school even that was something that I would have in the future, or going through middle school or elementary school, you would have blown my mind, because I just didn't think that would be possible. I had like what did they call it, like a Video Now or something, where you could put the disc in and watch like 30 minutes of an episode of something. I don't know if you ever had those, but the screen was really small, and it was like a DVD player, but it didn't play a whole lot because it didn't have the capacity to play like a whole movie. So like that was like my portable like entertainment for a little bit. But I mean, I never would have imagined the things that you could do with a smartphone. I couldn't imagine that when I was younger. So for me to say like, well, I think it's going to go in this direction or that direction, I just don't believe that I'm innovative enough to even guess.
Okay.
Because I never would have even expected that to be the future. Who knew, right? There's all sorts of things that you can do with smartphones now, not just the iPhone too. If you have an Android, you can like hook up a projector to it and like have your own movie theater from your phone. Like all the things that are happening now, I just look back and I'm like, this is so crazy. This is why. And I guess it's less so for you, maybe because you grew up with more of this technology around you, that it doesn't feel like as much of like a shock. But like comparing it to, I mean, I remember quite a bit of the 90s, and like comparing it to that and like the very early 2000s, it feels very different to me. And it is kind of mind-blowing to think of the things that you can do. Like you can touch your computer screen and like make it move. And then you can actually type on it too at the same time. They have like touchscreen computers now. That's crazy. That's so wild to me. I don't know. And I used to work on that super old computer in my house, and we had dial-up internet. Now you can have Wi-Fi anywhere. Like I could get Wi-Fi in the middle of the desert if someone has a hotspot. Comparing it to the 15 minutes it took me to dial up the internet when I was a kid, and I had to disconnect like the phone line and the fax machine in order to be able to do it. I had to load up my internet on an AOL disk first. You had to actually put a disk into your computer in order to get internet.
Oh my god.
It's just like, yeah, I know. But
I'm so glad I missed all that.
Sorry, but I mean, I'm old, I guess, but that's...
No!
That's what I remember from most of my childhood. And, I would call my friends to see if they were online, because they all had to dial up too. So I'd call them and be like, do you want to hit up, AOL Instant Messenger? Rest in peace. I'd be like, I'm going to go online. You want to chat on there? Sure. And then tell me if they were online, and we'd all log in there and we'd chat on there for a little bit. Like that was excitement for me. So yeah, it's crazy. That was like the first form of texting that I was exposed to. I know some people had beepers. I never had like a pager or a beeper or anything like that, but I don't know. That's why it's tougher for me, I guess. Maybe you have a better vision of where you think things are going to go, but my mind is continually blown. I'm like, I could never work in that field, where people are just like inventing technology. I'm very comfortable using it and exploring it and looking at data and all of that, but like the idea of coming up with it myself is like, nope. I have no idea how any of that works, or how it was able to progress so quickly within that span of time. Like literally within the past 15 years, I feel like it's really blown up. But even like over the course of my lifetime, the past 3 decades have been insane for technology growth. The internet was like in its infancy when I was growing up, and now like look at how far we've come. So to think of where video games are going to go, who knows?
Well, exactly. So if you can see how far we've come since your little chocolate phone to now, think about where we could go from now to another 15 years in terms of technology and video games. And like, so if we can get so far into the future, it's so advanced. That's my question. Like, do you think it's gonna outgrow us? Because obviously, yeah, it's obvious that these game developers and designers are now thinking about 40 and 50-year-olds and like, well, let's make video games for them. All those games for people in that age bracket are like Candy Crush and the ones that you play on like Facebook. You know, that you just, you swipe the day away and that's it.
Farmville.
Yeah, exactly. Games like that. But no one's making like Call of Duties and Super Smash Brothers for 50 and 60-year-olds. If you can still keep up and play those games now, then power to you. But so that's why I asked, like, in the future, do you think? But you make a lot of good points, and I guess it doesn't really matter. Well, that's another good point. I mean, yeah, age is just a number, but
who knows?
I
think there's a lot of there's
a lot of variables to this.
There's a lot of variables to your question that are just kind of hard for me to picture at this point, nearing 30. And it's just tough for me to picture the next, 10, even the next 10, because you're talking about 40, the next 10 years. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, do you think... Okay, so...
I mean, if you're saying, 40 to 50, the next, 10 to 20 years, I think that I'll probably be fine. I'm going to start spontaneously falling apart to the point where I can't see right, or I need, extra... I was picturing, 80... You're, talking about, for me, that's really not that far away.
I really don't consider, and I may be wrong for this, but, when I think of, people who play video games, for me, it stops at, maybe 65,
Okay, but, the way we're describing this elderly version of us, I was picturing old, well, 80s.
Just think of us now. We're already complaining about our backs and aches and pains.
And you can't see right. And I'm I hope that's not my reality in a few years. I think I'll be fine. I still feel very young. I think we'll be good.
I think so too. But that's the only reason why I stopped there. Because
I was gonna say, because when we're 80, I don't think we're gonna care about video. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think we're gonna care that much about video games.
Well, how everybody, your dad, he's real into, planes and trains and collecting and painting and making models and things like that. And I would have to assume that that's always been a passion and hobby of his, something that he enjoys doing.
Yeah, but my dad didn't grow up with video games.
No, I know, but I'm using that as an example. My passion, well, not passion, I guess, but a hobby of mine has been video games. Yeah, a hobby of mine has been video games since I was young, and I just don't think it'll ever stop because, I don't know what in my life would change for me to just be you know what, this isn't for me anymore. Or maybe they just stop making games that are inventive and creative and unique. Maybe it's like Hollywood where they just kind of keep reproducing the same things and doing reboots. But if it gets to that point, that might be what stops me. But the only thing that would stop me, is not being able to actually play anymore. I guess maybe something like Carpal Tunnel or something like that, where I can't really hold the controller anymore, but that's what I mean. So, I guess, it doesn't really matter, and we'll just have to wait and see. But with the advanced, what?
I kind of get the feeling that this is, an anxiety thing for you.
Well, I was thinking
anxious
about it.
And worried that, that will be your future, and so you're kind of, ping-ponging off of me to see if I share this anxiety with you.
What's that? I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm anxious about it. I've thought about it, but not to the point where it keeps me up at night. I just kind of thought about it, and I was like, hey, you know what? That's odd. That's nothing I've never really thought about, because I often think well, I wonder what I'll be doing when I'm older, what my thing will be. Will I still be into art and video games and stuff like that? But because it's not like my hobbies are just gonna change drastically to a point where I'm painting birdhouses and stuff.
I mean, maybe they will and maybe they won't. Some people keep their same hobbies for their whole life, and some people change hobbies every month. Who knows? People pick up hobbies and drop hobbies all of the time. So if it's something that's important to you that you think that, you'll keep enjoying, then, in 30 years, you might still be enjoying it,
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? I don't know.
Keep picking up hobbies. I just keep finding myself new things to do.
Well, there you go.
So
living proof of my statement.
Yeah, look at that. All right. Well then, what about? Let's move to board games then.
Okay.
Games as a whole. Board games right now, I think they're doing pretty good. A lot of I don't think people are asking for a new formula or are saying board games need to change in order for us to still be interested. And you have companies like like the pop vinyl people that are doing board games and stuff like that, and new characters and shows and movies to create games around, all the different clues, all the versions of that. Do you think that technology will find its way into board games as well, and it will become something a little more like, obviously not like what we see in Star Wars, because that's insane, but something a little more involved like that, to where, no, you're already shaking your head. No, not
I
at
don't
all.
think so.
Okay, so
No.
why? Do you think
Because
people
I
don't
think
want
that-
that, or it's impossible to just
Yes, I think people don't want that. I think
Okay.
part of the appeal of the board games is for people who want less screens and less time in front of a TV or a computer or a phone or a tablet.
I don't mean that.
No, I know, but I mean, like in Star Wars, they have you mean like
Well,
with,
holographic figures
yeah,
and
like
stuff
a
like that.
holographic, but it's still
Sure, but that's very advanced. I wasn't really.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just having technology in general is great, and it's wonderful that we have that. But I feel like if you add that to the board game, you're transforming it into something else. And I think that they already could do that if they wanted to, but I think the people who make board games understand the appeal of a board game is that you don't need anything but the game. And nothing can happen to it if you run out of batteries. If the power goes out, you still have your board game, because
True.
all you need is yourself and some friends
And
and a
some light.
space. Yeah, and some light.
If the power goes
So,
out, you
like,
still
you have
get
a
a candle.
But I think that's kind of the beauty of having a board game or a card game, is that you kind of create the adventure and the fun with the people that you're playing it with, instead of, a video game where you're being constantly stimulated by something that was, predetermined for you. So I think that that's part of the fun and the excitement of a board game. And I don't see that changing, because they already could, and I know that they kind of did some of that with like the scenic games, where you like put it into the TV and
Those were fun, though.
play along with it.
Yeah.
It is fun, but that turns it into something different. Then it's kind of like a hybrid game, but there's not a lot of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's definitely the ability to make that if people wanted it, but I don't think that people do.
I think that's why Scene It was so popular, because that was the only kind of game that was doing like a hybrid version like that.
To be fair, I never played it until I met you, so
Yeah.
none of my friends had seen it.
Oh god, we played so many different versions. And they made it for like Harry Potter, Star Wars, just classic movies, the golden age of film, the Twilight, which is what I think Aunt Tara owns. That's the one that we all played together.
Someone does. We played it.
Oh my gosh. But I love those games. That's definitely not something that I think needs to happen, but I thought about that recently too, because thinking of like a version of Clue where it is kind of computerized in a way, like or like Battleship. Imagine like a version of Battleship where you have the stand, and instead of the pegs being on the screen that you're facing, there's just a screen there, and you're seeing like, okay, I'm moving my ship and pressing that button, and
Then
the
it's
ship
a video
moves
game.
and stuff like that. So that's a video game at that
Yeah,
point.
then it's a video game. Then it's no longer a board game.
Okay.
So I think that, if your question is that board games will eventually become obsolete because everything's going to turn into a video game in that sense, I think that that's not going to happen. I just think they exist as their own separate entities, and I think that they're so popular in their own that there isn't a need to combine them. And I think that those things that you're mentioning would be great ideas for a video game. There could be a Battleship video. There might already be one. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure
I feel like
there
Clue
is.
is something that they've already turned into a video game where you could like solve the mystery. That feels like something that already exists.
Well, there's so many mystery games out there, but
Yes, but I think they probably Monopoly already exists as a video game. The Game of Life, I think they have that one too.
Yep.
So I think that they've already gone the route of trying to turn that into a video game, and I think it works as a video game too. But I still would enjoy getting the board out and playing with a big group of friends or family members.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the fun of it. And I think that, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel like that's kind of what other people enjoy about it as well. That you don't have to sit in front of a TV or a computer. You can just kind of break it out wherever you want and just have fun with what you have there.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them to become video games. I guess I still considered it, and like my idea for the Battleship game, to still be like a tabletop game, because you're still sitting with another person, you're still sitting in front of that, I don't know, briefcase that opens on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the way that that board game is laid out. And you're still involved with the pegs and pieces, but instead of having two screens where you would put the pegs, you have the one, and you kind of control your ships that way. But I guess maybe that counts as a hybrid, you know, and I guess, you know, there's a possibility for more hybrid style board
I don't
game
think that
slash
would
video
appeal
game.
to people, though, the idea of that, because it works as it is. Like, no one's sitting there thinking this needs to be improved. You know, it's been around for so long and people enjoy those games as they are. There's really nothing to be improved upon for the games that already exist.
You're right.
If someone wanted to, like, come up with something new, maybe. But I don't feel like that's something that needs technology, personally. I think there's many different types of games, and I think that, like, the hard copies of board games and card games are pretty perfect as they are.
They have been trying this new thing, I've noticed, where they're turning these board games and video games into like live action. Not in terms of movies, but like, you know, like the TV shows like Wipeout and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing things like that with the tabletop games. I forget what the show is called, but it is a show. It's like Family Game Night or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's on one of those channels, like CBS or whatever.
Okay.
And it's like the family members are the pieces. You know, there's like the game, there's like a Monopoly, there's the Game of Life, you know, there's Sorry, and you have like the family, and there's like, I guess the mom and the daughters in like pink shirts, and the dad and the son are in blue. And there's a giant board that's been created to look like said game, and then you have to play it and win the money or win the prize or whatever it is. I've never actually watched it. I've just seen all the commercials for them. But that's really cool, and I think that could be a new direction for games, because I guess like Twister's kind of like a board game that's mixed with like you're using your body at the same time.
Okay.
You know?
Are you saying you think that like that format
would be interesting to see, like,
if for you to like live through the game?
Yeah.
That's kind of why I loved like Legends of the Hidden Temple and Double Dare when I was a kid, because they were like going through what felt like a board game and all these obstacles, but it was real life, and you just wanted to like be there and do all of that. Yeah. I think that's what you made me think of when you were talking about that, because that's exactly what it sounds like. There's definitely appeal for that. I just don't know about the feasibility of doing that in your own home.
I was gonna say, I don't know how well that would work. It seems very suited
for like a studio somewhere, but
yeah. Oh my god, imagine like a Candyland. Imagine being able to go and play through Candyland.
You know what? that might be the next, adventure type of experience that they come up with. Like we have escape rooms
like the escape rooms, yeah.
Laser tag, mini golf. Like maybe that's the next thing, is like playable sets where you can go through and like play a game.
Oh god, I'd love that.
That
where you have like a game
cool
master
idea.
that's reading all the cards and stuff like that, and you're rolling the dice, the big like foam dice. That would be cool.
I think that, and that kind of, it's almost like a haunted house experience without the scares.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Because you're kind of like
you're
going
immersed.
through. Yeah, it's immersive. It's like an experience where you feel like you're in a different world, and you get to play through and see what's going to happen. I think that's part of the reason that people enjoy those types of experiences too.
Yeah.
So I think that would be very successful. Copyright that before someone else.
Oh jeez, yeah, I better get on it.
Get a patent.
I don't know who to talk to about that. I don't have a lawyer, but
It could be our next business venture.
Oh my god, Mr. and Mrs. Nerd presents real life game experiences. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna hit you with some trivia. I'm gonna ask you first.
Oh god.
And then I'm gonna see if you can give me the answer. All right. So, Nintendo. We were talking about games and how amazing they are.
Mm-hmm.
Zelda, Mario, Kirby, the works. But do you know how they got their start?
What do you mean?
Do you know how Nintendo got their start? Like, their humble beginnings?
I don't.
No? Okay, cool. Um,
Oh, you just want to drop some knowledge.
so they were founded in 1889, and they originally produced handmade Hanafuda playing cards. So they were in gaming.
I have heard this before.
But they started out in like gaming and like board games and tabletop and stuff like that. So I kind of thought that was interesting because it's like this big like corporation that's like so built on video games. That's what they're known for. Started out as like board games and playing cards and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And there's even Nintendo now has a Hanafuda like game that you can play on the Switch. It's like one of those little, you know, whatever games that you can download.
Right.
And you can play that, which is kind of cool. It's a nice nod to how they got their start. But I thought that was interesting. Because I don't know. I love little facts like that. And I knew that already, but I didn't know every detail about it. So before I brought it onto the show, I just wanted to make sure I was getting it right. But so I'll probably do that now for every episode and try to find a little tidbit about whatever it is we're talking about.
Find a fun fact to see if I know what it is.
Oh yeah. But cool. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any fun facts about video games that you would like to share, or even your favorite video game or board game that you would like to share, go ahead and put it in the comments of this YouTube video. Or
if I triggered any of your nostalgia, please let me know.
Also
so
that.
I don't feel like I'm quite as alone.
You can let us know if you were triggered by nostalgia on Instagram, either at the Mr. and Mrs. Nerd account or SpookySandwich66 or JB_Visual Arts. But yeah, we love hearing from you, so if you have something to say, please do so. And we will see you all in the next episode. Stay nerdy. Bye.